where then does this aerial attack as well as the ground war in the Russian side of the border in Kursk, where does that leave us all now? Let's talk to Catherine Philp, World Affairs Editor at The Times, and also to Oleksiy Goncharenko, the Ukrainian MP, chair of the Odessa Regional Council in Kyiv. Catherine, Oleksiy, good afternoon to both of you.
Hey, John.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Catherine, can I come to you first? It is the biggest drone attack so far. How much of a threat was it to Russia?
Well, we saw 11 drones shot down over the Moscow region. That's the wider region around the capital. It's not clear exactly what their targets are. It never is when something's intercepted in that way. I suppose if you're bullish in Moscow, you would say that this proves that the Russian capital is well defended and better defended possibly than most Ukrainian cities. But it's a much more tangible experience of the war than most Russians have had so far, other than those who've had the misfortune to have their relatives deployed either to the Ukrainian front line or these young conscripts that have borne the brunt of the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk.
Yes.
So I think it makes it a little more real, at the very least, for Russia. And it's not great for Vladimir Putin's image when he's already struggling to put down what is really quite a small incursion into Kursk.
So we know a little, don't we, about the thinking in Kyiv on the part of Volodymyr Zelensky on the value to Ukraine of this attack. He wants to demonstrate something with this and also send a message to his friends as well as to Russia.
That's correct. And in fact, today we saw quite a sort of ballsy out there statement by the Ukrainian military, where they put it on the record for the first time that they are using Western supplied missile systems. In fact, the US supplied HIMAR systems, which are multiple rocket launchers. They're being used from Ukrainian territory to hit bridges in the Kursk region to make sure that the Ukrainians can hold on to that territory and potentially to prevent the troops there from being resupplied. So they are being very out there about the fact that they're using Western weapons. And this is, again, I think we discussed before about this being to drive home that message to Kyiv's allies that, Putin's most apocalyptic threats may ring rather hollow if he can't make good on them as in retaliation, which he's threatened so often.
What is the capacity of the Russian military as things stand now, today, and as far as one can judge, to strike targets inside Russia, and how far inside Russia?
So the Ukrainian military, in fact, I've just been speaking to a drone manufacturer, one of the many kind of private companies that have launched a joint venture with the Ukrainian military. They were telling me they now have drones that can travel up to 2,000 kilometers, which was new to me. We're looking at a shorter range would presumably have been used in this targeting of Moscow. They have drones that can reach sort of 700 to 800 kilometers. So those are the primary weapons that they are permitted to use. The shorter range Western weapons, like the HIMARS, they can use. They cannot use the longer range ones like this British supplied Storm Shadow as things stand right now.
Yes, I mean Volodymyr Zelensky was telling his friends in Europe and the West they need not fear the talk from Putin and company of retaliation against NATO targets, but you'd also on the other side of the coin imagine that these attacks might just strengthen Russian resolve as well.
Potentially, yes. I mean, one of the reasons that the Ukrainians are so keen to have their hands untied to use these longer range missiles is that they carry higher payloads that a drone cannot, or certainly the kind of drones that they are using. They don't have, vast predator drones like the US. So if they were to inflict, they can run sabotage missions, they can hit certain things within Russia, such as oil refineries or, maybe military monitoring equipment. But if they are to hit and seriously damage air bases from which attacks on Ukraine are launched, they would need these heavier weapons. And that's why they're so desperate to get them, to get permission to use them.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much, as always. Catherine Philp there, World Affairs editor at the Times. Let me turn now to Oleksiy Goncharenko, the Ukrainian MP, who's chairman of the Odessa Regional Council in Kyiv. Oleksiy, what to you was the importance and the value of these drone attacks, first of all, into Moscow?
I think this is part of Ukrainian campaign and Ukrainian efforts to show to Russian people, to let them try the medicine they gave to us, to show them that this war will happen not only on Ukrainian soil, that not only Ukrainian buildings, houses, villages, towns, and cities will be burned down, but also Russian. I think without these, this war would never happen. This war would never stop, because if Russians the whole war happening on Ukrainian soil and Russian people don't feel the consequences of this, so why they should stop this war? So I think this is part of this, but definitely I'm sure there were military targets as well. Where they hit this time or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so listening to your leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, who's saying to his friends in the West, look, you can safely supply us with more and stronger weapons, including long-range missiles. Doesn't it follow from that if you are supplied with those longer-range missiles, you'll be launching them deep into Russia at targets, maybe including Moscow, which would represent a significant escalation? Is that not fair?
It's not fair, and it will not escalate. Why drones attacking Moscow is not escalation? Why missiles attacking Moscow will be escalation? We heard so much about, if Ukraine wouldn't attack Crimean Bridge, that would be a apocalyptic reaction from Putin, and it did not happen. Then, if Ukraine would attack Crimea, and nothing happened. Then if Ukraine will attack Moscow, then Ukraine attacked Kremlin, nothing happened. Now Ukraine, for the first time in 80 years, occupied part of Russian sovereign territory, internationally recognized. It's more than 1,000 square kilometers, which more than Liechtenstein, Malta, and some other European countries combined.
Yeah.
And what is apocalyptic reaction from Putin? Nothing, just some apocalyptic mumbling from him, as always. So we show to the world that the world should not be afraid of Putin.
Okay, so I understand your argument very, very, very clearly. But let me just put it to you to get your response. It's one thing to send a drone or a number of drones into Moscow. They were all shot down. There was one a few weeks back which actually did strike on or about the Kremlin itself. Didn't hurt anyone, didn't do great damage, but it did reach the target. It would be a very different matter if that was a Storm Shadow missile, a powerful weapon supplied by NATO allies. That could do enormous damage, could cause enormous numbers of deaths. And you'd expect that to ratchet up the situation in a way that we simply have not seen so far and maybe draw a Russian response. I hear what you're saying, but just how do you deal with that argument?
I will do like this. These weapons is given to Ukraine. The Ukraine decides itself how we will use this weapon. These weapons is given to Ukraine. It's in Ukraine. So it's our choice what to do with this. It should be like this. And in general, just imagine, so we are fighting a country which is in several times bigger than Ukraine in population, in military resources and other things. And this country can attack the whole territory of Ukraine when and how they want, and Ukraine cannot. You can't win the boxing with one hand tied behind your back. It's exactly what our allies are putting us in the situation. So they need to be, if they are with us, if they are saying that Ukraine is fighting not just for Ukraine itself, not just for our independence, but for our values, for international law, and that Putin would not stop in Ukraine, they should give us possibility to use the weapons how we see we need to use it.
Yes. Are you worried, Oleksiy, about the resolve of your friends in Europe and the West, the resolve holding up? Because there's been a lot of talk about Germany, for example, scaling down the scale of its support for Ukraine, which it's run into billions of euros. It suggested that could come down significantly. There's been hesitation over the supply of long-range missiles. Are you worried about Europe and other countries feeling, war-weary?
Yeah, I'm very worried about this, very concerned. But in the end of the day, Germany will follow its own strategic interests. And I am absolutely sure, as well as the United Kingdom and other countries, and I'm absolutely sure that Ukrainian victory in this war is in the best interest of the United Kingdom, of Germany, and so on. Because if Ukraine would not stop Russia now, then Russia would attack Baltic countries, and already German forces are staying in Lithuania, and German soldiers and officers will die there. UK soldiers and officers are staying in other NATO countries on the eastern flank, and they will die when repelling Russian attack. I'm sure that you don't want this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that UK and Germany want to live in, and other countries, civilized world, they want to live in the world where the international law matters. That's what we are fighting for. So I think there can be some debates. It's normal for democratic countries. But in the end of the day, I believe that the support will continue.
Yes. I wonder what sort of conversations are you in Kyiv having with your European allies in particular about the possibility of a change of administration in America? Because a new president in the White House, if it's Donald Trump, could have significant implications for support for Ukraine as well as for NATO. You can do nothing about the American election. That will take its own course. But are you discussing that possibility with your allies and how to have a contingency plan in place if it's needed?
Yes, it will take its own course, and quite crazy course, I should say. At least this campaign is. But it's up to definitely up to American people who will be their president. But it's the same answer. I don't know who will be president of the United States, Trump or Harris, but I'm sure they will follow best interests of the United States of America. And if Russia will succeed in the war against Ukraine, that would be the worst possible scenario for America. That will mean non-proliferation policy. Forget about this. The whole world, because Ukraine is the only country in the world which gave up its nuclear weaponry on the guarantees of the United Kingdom and United States.
Yeah.
And if after this Ukraine is defeated and destroyed, at least partially, then what does it mean for the world? Go to nukes. That's the only way if you want to have security. Then it will be a complete disaster in the eyes of American taxpayers. Or more than $100 billion already sent to Ukraine will go to rubbles, just to nothing. Then it will be the end of American leadership in the world, because the world will see America cannot help you when you are in need, and so on. So I'm sure that despite his rhetoric, if Donald Trump will be elected president of the United States, his actions, I think, will be different. But I agree with the fact that it's unpredictable, and definitely this unpredictability concerns us, but we can do nothing with this.
Well, indeed. Oleksiy, it is good to talk to you. Thank you. Oleksiy Goncharenko, the Ukrainian MP in Kyiv.